Hi and welcome. I'm Dina Betty and I have Zach Herber with me today. He's going to be sharing the story of his son Griffin, and we're going to hear about your journey. It's been quite a tremendous journey that you would wish on no family, and especially makes me want to cry, not a young child like your beautiful Griffin, your son. So welcome, Zach, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I want to jump into Griffin's story that takes us back to the beginning of 2023. Share with us how this journey has played out.
So, yeah, Griff got diagnosed at 13 months. So back in January, actually Friday the 13th, we were rushed to the ER. And he had been having some minor symptoms since about Christmas time, maybe New Year's, where he was actually like he still is like a incredible kid, like doesn't scream or doesn't fuss, doesn't have like hard blow up crying fits. And so he's just good. Like we would have friends ask us like what's it like, when he was born and growing like to 13 months. And my wife and I would always joke and be like, well, I don't want to tell you because yours might not be like ours. And you might think you're doing something wrong. We just got really lucky. Like Griffin doesn't fuss or cry. He takes like 3 naps a day. It was like great. And so we were from New Year's to about January 13th, he had these little symptoms like he started smiling a little funny, where he would just like smirk, but he wasn't doing it all the time. It was only when he was like feeling um, giggly or goofy. He would do this weird smirk, and we just thought it was it's something going on with him building his personality, just hitting a year. And then he started really playing with his left arm and not his right arm. And then he was walking pretty like solid at 10 months. He started having like some falls and some stumbling, and this was all within like the 2 weeks from New Year's to January 13th. And we were actually moving at the time, so we were slowly packing up. We had double paid rent so that we could move kind of slower. We didn't have the ability to just one weekend make that change, so we had double paid rent, and we were moving into a 3 bedroom house, just so that we could have an office, our room, and then Griffin have his own room. And so we kind of pushed a lot of these symptoms under the rug during that time. And it was to my mother-in-law actually was watching him while we were moving. And she was like, hey, have you noticed all of these things are on one side? And we didn't, it's kind of, sorry, it's like bad parenting. It feels like sometimes it's like we were focused on so many things, and he wasn't fussy. He wasn't, so he would just kind of, he would be around us playing, following us in the other room. So it was like he's just hanging out with us and we didn't notice. And so we scheduled an appointment the next day with his pediatrician. And she said, well, it could just be a year growing. And of course, when you go to the doctor, none of the symptoms show up.
Exactly.
It's like I'm telling you, this was here yesterday. It's not here today. And so she wrote us a referral for a neurologist, and we just went straight there. We didn't wait for them to call or go through insurance. We just drove over to them. And I'm in the medical field, so I actually knew the neurologist office. And we walked in, and he saw Griff for about 4 minutes. And God bless him, he's amazing. He was like, you guys got to go. Like, you need to go to the ER. I'm gonna call. Just drive down there. You need to go right now. And so we drove down. That was felt like a 5 hour drive. It was only like 15 minutes.
Was your heart just, like
Yeah. I mean, mine was just focused on not not breaking down, not thinking of the worst. My wife was with Griff in the back seat, just kind of having a little bit harder of a time. And so I was just trying to get there, get safe. It was raining. Like there was just so much chaos happening. It was Friday the 13th. And so we get there, and thankfully the neurologist called. We actually walked in They said, "Are you Zach? Are you Griffin?" And we were like, "Yeah." They walked us straight to the back where there was like 9 nurses. We got admitted, and that started this just crazy journey. 2 days later, we were admitted to the hospital, just on a regular pediatric floor in Sutter, Sacramento. And 2 days later, a doctor walked in. I remember it's like walked in with about 5 students. No other doctors, just her. And she said, "Well, we have the MRI results." And we're like, "Okay." They thought it was a stroke. They thought it was meningitis. They thought it was sepsis, a bunch of different things that could cause the paralysis that he was experiencing. And those 2 days that we're in the hospital, he declined so drastically, that the doctor walked in with their little 5 minions, I say, and she just put the image on the screen, and she didn't have to say anything. Like we saw it, and she just said, "You guys are going to go to the ICU," and that's where they'll start walking you through it. It was yeah, it was very evident. It was a tumor in his brain. You see on like TV shows brains
Yeah.
scans, so you kind of, even if you're not in the medical field, you know what they're supposed to look like, and his did not look like that. It was about the third of the size of his brain, and so we go to the ICU, and yeah, that's where that I don't want to monologue, but that's where it all started.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I know there's no words. Like there's no words in moments like this in life. And you and I talked about this offline. Like we know there's no words.
Yeah.
These are those moments in life. There's nothing I can say, but my heart breaks.
Yeah, we had a it's later in our story, it's actually crazy full circle, but the team that we walked up to the ICU, we had this fantastic nurse and doctor. And when we got there, we have a faith in our family. Mine has gotten much stronger. My wife is incredible. She had such a strong faith all through the beginning, but we were having a hard time. But we were playing worship music the whole time in the ICU, and out loud, like doctors would come in, we wouldn't turn it off, tell us what you need to know. And we just had a bunch of little, like I say, God moments where we are just having a rough time. Our ICU doctor prayed with us, talked to us about, some stuff that he's seen, and miracles can happen, to just keep faith. And lovely, like just awesome. We had a couple nurses pray with us, like, and just keep telling us, "We're praying for you guys. We're praying for you guys." And looking back on it, it was probably because they saw the images, and they kind of, they had
you needed a miracle, right? This wasn't something that maybe could be expected, that modern medicine could, be there, and we needed something extra.
Yeah, and with the size of his tumor, so the doctor basically told us, he said, "Look, if this was in an adult, it wouldn't be a fraction of the size before the adult was experiencing excruciating headaches, migraines, would have already showed extreme right-sided weakness, all these things, because the baby's head is still being formed. It wasn't solid. So his skull was allowed to grow with the tumor where it needed to. So it grew to a size that like a formed skull wouldn't have allowed." And he was like, "This is significant." And it was one tumor, but inside had about 9 cysts. So it was like fluid within the tumor. And so I think they saw it, and they kind of had this preconceived understanding of likelihood.
Depth of the situation.
Yeah.
I don't know much about brain tumors at all. I mean, we have a very dear friend who she married her high school sweetheart, and we went to high school together, and we lost him from a brain tumor. Did they know what type of tumor this was with Griffin?
No, not right away. Not right away. Actually, the neurosurgeon, we had a biopsy done, and the neurosurgeon is fantastic. Saracillo in Sacramento, if I can plug him.
Yeah,
He's
plugs.
incredible. Because on the biopsy, he was just supposed to go in and take a piece. And I told you this offline, but just
Oh,
another small.
he's a him. Okay.
Yeah,
Say,
yeah.
say his name again.
Dr. Saracillo.
Oh, Dr. Sarah.
Uh,
Okay. Got it.
he, another little God moment where he went in and he's only supposed to go in and get a small piece of the tumor so that they can send it to 12 different labs throughout the country that it's been to now. And he goes in and he goes to a position where there's a large cyst, and he actually removes about 12 milliliters of fluid from the cyst, and he got the samples that he needed. When he came out, he told us that he removed a large cyst just with a syringe, really, and was able to get the sample. But he also has so much experience. He goes, this is the type of tumor that I believe that it is. This is exactly what they look like. This is kind of what it feels like. And our ignorance, we heard it, and it's called small blue cell tumor. And we go, awesome, because all we heard was small tumor. In reality, it's not a great. It's a really aggressive and rare tumor. But what he did was he relieved so much pressure from Griffin's midline of his brain that when he woke up, he basically regained his right side back. He still had weakness, but he was able to stand. He was now playing again versus the total paralysis. So what was just a small surgery changed what we believe changed his outcome, because his attitude came back. So many, like, the ability to play as a kid is so vital to healing. The ability to not be frustrated because you can't use one side is huge. And that started like kind of his healing process of going through the chemo that we ended up having to go through.
All right, and I want to take us there. So this is the beginning that you've just outlined to our audience.
Also, if I just add, on the day we got admitted to the hospital, the Friday the 13th, we moved the next day fully out of our apartment to the house, and we didn't move anything. We couldn't. Thank God my in-laws were in, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law from Australia were in. They moved everything for us. So when we spent a month and a half, the first month and a half in the hospital, our house had already been moved in and they were living there. So
that's
thank God for them. But it was just like we moved that day. It was just, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. And again, you and I shared this with one another. It's amazing how people, strangers and family and friends will rise to these type of occasions to lift us up. And I know for me, that was life, really affirming, not life changing, life affirming, that we talk so much about what's wrong with life, but if those who are listening, if they could get that, in the darkness there is the light. And I think that juxtaposition, that extremity of it, right? Extremity of it. That really shows what light is, right? Like it shows you the depth, if that makes sense. And so having people do that for you is incredible.
Yeah, I actually have a really good friend. It's so funny you just said that, because we were talking about this, and he said it's so funny when you're walking around town, people that are wearing like downtown where their courthouses are, there's people in suits and slacks, and a person in the daytime could be walking with their phone with the flashlight on in their pocket, and you would never know it.
Never know it.
But at night, you see the flashlight and you're like, hey, your flashlight's on. Right. And it's like that because, like, when everything's fine and everyone's going about their life, you don't see the people that are there willing to help. You don't see that because you don't need it. But when you really like when we went through what we did at the beginning, we didn't even know how to deal with cancer or chemo or going to and from work. And a lot of people stepped in. A lot of people did. And it was like, It was a miracle for sure.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful part of our humanity for sure. So I heard you say that you were there for a month and a half
Yeah.
in the
To
ICU.
start. To start, yeah.
And during that month and a half, I'm assuming they create a plan of action. So
Uh,
what was the plan?
yeah, so Griffin, so as things progressed, the first month was basically diagnosis, biopsy, find stability, and then start some plan. We unfortunately Griffin is he has a extremely rare, extremely aggressive tumor. So his tumor is very rare, predominantly in older people. So 80 years and older is where they see this tumor. So to have it in an infant is like, it just adds more rarity to it. So we actually don't have a roadmap. Our doctor, Dr. Yim, basically took a couple of roadmaps that were similar tumors and how they reacted and basically combined them to create one. And because we're not on a specific protocol, he had to choose one, and that's what we did. And we started chemo within a week and a half. And the first round of chemo was about 10 days, but then we had to wait a couple of about a week afterwards to see all the levels drop and make sure that he was stable to the drugs and deal with all side effects that were there. And then he ended up getting a pretty bad fever after about day 10. So we got admitted again. So we had 1 day out in that time frame. And then we got admitted again for just a they call it like a chemo fever. It has no side effects, but when you have a fever of 100.4, they're like, you're not going anywhere. You're staying here.
Right. So that's the reason you were there.
Yeah, that's why we're there for so long the first time.
And I understand like this protocol is dynamic because they don't know. So after a month and a half, did
We
they
do another one.
no?
Yeah.
Did you have like a break? Like, okay, we're gonna take a break and see now radiation or like what was
No, so we did 4 rounds of chemo straight. So we did about a week on, and then we had 2 week break. And every round we went back in for about 5 days. So it was about a week on, week off, week on, week off. And then every about 28 days, from the first day, they call day 0, we start again. So it's like chemo, 28 days of kind of rest and healing. You see the symptoms, and then you do it again. And we did 4 rounds of that. So it took about 5 months, and then we did surgery. And when we did surgery, Dr. Sarasillo again was able to get everything. However, it grew back immediately. It basically, the cavity that they created from the surgery, there was a small Griffin's tumor is in a spot of his brain that is right near the center line, and it borders the thalamus, I believe. I'm probably saying the wrong thing, but it borders the thalamus, which if they go too aggressive, it could create significant cognitive long term.
Mhm.
So they couldn't get 100%. They got about 99.9.
Yeah.
But that 0.1 that they did that they weren't able to get grew back and basically filled the whole area. And yeah, that was another time where we were terrified because
In like April now or
April, yeah, April. We had our surgery on April 5th, and we had an MRI about April 20th, 25th, and it showed it had grown back significantly to the point where all of our team, our doctors, even the neurosurgeon were confused. Oh no, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, we had surgery.
yeah.
Sorry, Cinco de Mayo.
So
Uh,
so they're like this is unreal basically that
yeah,
it grow back this quickly.
yeah. The surgeon said brain doesn't heal that fast. It doesn't fill in that fast, and tumor doesn't normally grow that fast. So he goes, I don't know what it is, But for the type of tumor that it is and how fast it does grow, they had to assume that it was tumor versus moving forward as if it was healthy tissue. And that was a big derailment because we went from like 5 months of consistent every round he got better, every round he got better, every round he got better, and we had a roadmap. Like you said, we were going to Stanford at that time, and that put a pause on that because we had to get rid of the solid mass, and so we kind of got derailed and we got sent to San Diego for radiation
And
for
that
six.
was that through the Ronald McDonald House or separate?
No, that was we were in the place called the Sonesta Suites. It's a long stay hotel.
Okay.
And thank God there's organizations that helped us too. We got a lot of help from Alex Lemonade Stand and sorry, I don't know if I'm we got a lot of help from other organizations down there in San Diego.
Yeah.
They helped out a lot, but it was still, 6 weeks at a long stay hotel. And mindset wise, it was probably the best thing we could have done. Just incurring that because the Ronald McDonald is such a fantastic organization. However, this is just my wife and I. It's filled with children, and we're already focused so much on our kid and trying to keep positive and keep a good mindset and attitude that, seeing a dozen kiddos all going through, hell, it just pulls on you a little too much. And it's selfish, I know, but we couldn't, it's hard to be around those environments.
Well, it's hard to weather multiple storms at the same time, and that's not anything to feel bad. It's just a matter of mental capacity and emotional capacity. I get that totally.
Because even like it's just we have friends at our home hospital who we love, and like both of them just beat leukemia, and we have another kiddo who we just absolutely love, but unfortunately his story didn't turn out that way, and his parents are fantastic, and we have to limit that because we only have so much bandwidth of our energy. And the Ronald is fantastic, I love it for what it is and what it does, but in San Diego where we were at, we had to get away. So every day we would get sedated for 6 weeks, and he would get radiation for about an hour and a half, and then we would go to the hotel and we would have breakfast as a family, and then we would find out what we want to do, because Griffin is, I mean, like, still everything outdoors. He wants to play outdoors, wants to be outdoors. And when we spent so much in a hotel in our hospital room, like when we're out, we're not inside.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you are making the most of every moment.
Yeah.
We know that there's no guarantees, even if there's not hardship, right? We know.
Exactly.
So I love that you're doing that. 6 weeks you were there.
Yeah.
And then you got some good news, or tell us, where's there, well, stem cell, was there stem cell in this, or?
We're currently at stem cell. So I'm sitting in a Ronald McDonald right now as I talk about it. So stem cell went fantastic. He had no signs and symptoms. He had no issues. He had no hardship during that time. He only got better and more joyful every day. We came home. We did about 10 days of testing, all different tests, except for an MRI. And the reason is because radiation inflames an area and gives false scans. So Stanford said, no, we don't need that. It's fine. Then what day is it? It's 22nd. On the 1st of September, we got admitted to Stanford for stem cell therapy, under the assumption that the radiation worked. On September 2nd, September 1st, we gave the first round, the first of 2 doses of high dose chemo. And on September 2nd, he got stroke coded in the morning. He he woke up totally happy and playing, and about 8 a.m. woke up. About 9:15, he lost his whole left side of his body, which was his strong side. So something happened in the right side of his brain this time, um, and it was really scary. We had about 2 dozen nurses and doctors and neurologists and cardiologists rushed to our room, and all of them doing their own scans, all of them asking the same repetitive question for their charts. And he got intubated, rushed to the ICU. He was put on EEG and CT scans. He had 3 different MRIs, and they came in with about 6 doctors and said, so it looks like he had, and this the same thing, it was total deja vu. We thought it was sepsis, we thought it was meningitis, they thought it was strokes. Same thing as in January.
Right.
And Ashley and I kind of were, we're terrified, but we're still like chuckling at how ridiculous the same pattern is now repeating itself. And so they tell us with about 6 doctors, they go, well, it looks like he's had 6 to 8 strokes throughout his brain. And then they continue to run the tests. There, he's on ventilator for 48 hours. And then they come back in. We have to do another MRI. So they do another MRI, and they say, okay, it doesn't look like it's strokes. It looks like they're tumors, a bunch of tumors throughout his brain. But his spinal tap showed no spread of disease. So this doesn't match up. And it still doesn't match up to us, really. All the doctors are confused. They're showing multiple new tumors in weird random parts of his brain, some very significant in size. And so we stopped treatment. We could just kind of wake him up and see what happens. I remember the doctor saying, we don't know what he's going to present like when he wakes up. And I told them, I said, I know exactly what he's going to present like. Like, he's lost from first diagnosis, from being a baby, he learned how to walk. Then he lost how to walk, learned how to walk again. Then he had brain surgery, learned how to walk again after that. So he's already learned 4 times how to move and how to, live his life. And he's been sedated so many times, he's like has an aversion to it. So he's trying to wake up a lot of the time while being down. And when he's trying, he's grabbing with his left and his right. He's grabbing, like using both sides. So I told you this, it's funny. We wake him up. They go, we don't know if we can pull the tube out. Immediately the tube comes out. We don't need it again. He immediately starts reaching for mom, both arms. Mom gets in the bed and is with him. And 24 hours later, he's sitting up wanting to watch Miss Rachel. 48 hours, he's standing in the room, not really walking, but standing and playing. 72 hours, he's like walking up and down the room. We're confined, right? And then we get transferred back to the floor because he's good. And now he's good. It's like, it's just the weirdest. I firmly believe that it was an attack, yeah. So, but we got horrible news that, they see spread. That's no news that any parent wants to hear, because we know what that means. We know that our fight is, there's only so many times you can fight something. I guess, I don't know why, but there's only so many things that you can do to fight it. And so our punches are running out, but he's still getting better. And the MRI showed that the original large tumor was killed 100% by radiation. So they see no sign of disease in that region. It's only with these new spots that we're fighting. So that was a huge blessing that came out of it.
Wow. So the one that after they had the Cinco de Mayo surgery and then it came back, now we had radiation and now that one is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we got some good news yesterday as well with we just had another MRI. I mean, this kid has been sedated and scanned more than most adults in their whole life. It's
Right.
unreal. But the most recent scan showed that the chemo basically has started really affecting those new areas. And I do quotes because my wife and I don't believe that those are spread. We believe that whatever happened is just residual because more than 50% of all of it is dissipated. With just a
It's so mysterious. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but it's like it's you cannot wrap your mind around it. And I can see why you can say that you and Ashley have a hard time believing it's spread when it's so dynamic. It seems to come in like not come and go, but it seems to be a bit random at this time. Scientific random.
We've also had doctors literally go, I don't know. Neurologist said Stanford. You telling me a Stanford neurologist says that, and then I'm going to have confidence? It's hard.
I know. Well, I always say that medicine is, it's not a perfect science.
Yeah, it's practicing.
It's practicing, which I think it's okay to acknowledge that. They're not God, right? They're just very talented in what they do. So,
yeah.
A little bit about stem cell. I'm not very educated on that. So you're in the Ronald McDonald House right now. What does that offer?
The Ronald McDonald or stem cell?
No, stem cell.
So stem cell treatment is I only know two versions of it. I'm sure they use it in a lot of other areas, but one is leukemia. For children with leukemia, they do what's called mostly a bone marrow transplant, where you have to have a donor from someone else.
Okay.
And because your bone marrow is what creates the cells. I'm not a scientist. This is what I've gathered in my foggy memory of these horrible conversations with doctors.
Yeah.
So the bone marrow creates the cells, and for leukemia, that's where the cancer is. So they have to bring in someone else's bone marrow. For ours, it's actually called autologous, which is throughout the first 4 months, we made trips down here once a month to do stem cell harvesting for Griffin, which means they did a surgery, they put something in his jugular, and they basically funneled his blood out of his body, took the stem cells and put the blood back into his body. And we've saved the stem cells from the past 3 times.
Wow.
And basically they give him such a significant amount of chemo over 2 days that without it's called stem cell rescue, not transplant, because without that, they give him so much his body can't handle it. Like his body will literally start shutting down in every area because the cells aren't reproducing. So they have to give him his own stem cells that we've already harvested as a rescue drug so that his body can start to have something to start to duplicate and survive, really.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just acknowledge our audience who is sharing this journey with you and listening to your story and asking to please spread the word for your family and for Griffin. So that will help support you. I know that you shared that you're able to still work, but the financial burden is still very great. If that is something that we can help lift off your shoulders, one of the things that was so significant in my own journey was that financial burden didn't have to be a concern when, again, we talk about mental and emotional capacity. That we only have so much bandwidth emotionally. So if our audience is able to even give $1 towards your family's journey, please do so. So is this a day by day? It sounds like it is. I think that might be not such a great question, but how far in advance do you know about the next step in Griffin's journey?
It has, if I could, I just add, if we need prayer. We need prayer for healing.
I want to acknowledge prayer for I was kind of naive to the impact of that which we can't see, touch, or feel. And we're, a little bit taboo in our society to talk about spirituality and God and, again, that which we can't touch, see, or feel. But I can personally say in my experience, what I've experienced, there is no doubt in my mind that there is an energy of force of goodness and love that exists, and that it's something to acknowledge, tap into, and to embrace. But it's also very, very powerful, and it also reacts to our request. So in the sense of prayer, it's an asking. And,
Yep.
and it is there when you ask in a space of love, that it answers. And it might not always answer in the way that we want. And in this case, we pray that it does. And I know that no matter what, love is eternal. So
Yeah.
that is something that never goes away.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. But I agree with you, and I hold your family up in prayer. And I think because I've held your family, I've had, I want to acknowledge to our audience and to your mom, Wendy. Wendy has been one of her Smiles volunteers at our golf tournament since our first golf tournament. And it's, we just had our 7th annual. So that's how I learned about your story and about Griffin. And isn't it interesting that her service, that's how the world goes round. It's like, we all are part of the quilt. So it's all part of love. And yes, I agree. Maybe continue to hold your family up in prayer and seek Griffin's healing, full healing.
Yeah. I really appreciate that.
That just one last thing on prayer is I've had this, I've had you, your family on my mind, and I shared this with you, but I'll share it with our audience too, is like, I had you on my mind, and there was this little voice, hard to put, into words, but there was something inside me that I've been called. I feel I've been called to do more. And that's why I was like, can we get on video? Can we talk about your story? I want people to know Griffin and know his journey. I feel very called to share your story.
Yeah. And I wish Griffin was here right now. I'm down in the Ronald McDonald trying to let them play and let my wife hang out. I really appreciate that. But to your question about day by day, we on Cinco de Mayo, we had a really solid game plan. When it grew back, everything got thrown out. And then after radiation, we had a really solid game plan. And after the stroke code, everything got thrown out. So we have had this like finish line in sight multiple times. And right now, we might be going back to San Diego for additional radiation. That's because of how well the thing is is they will continue. What our doctor here said is they will continue to fight as long as we're able. And Griffin, we say GriffinStrong. He is a fighter, like absolutely, he's a fighter. And so the plan now is we start chemo tomorrow, and this is the fastest we've ever had a turnaround. This is 22 days from a turnaround, and we gave 50% of a dose on the second. Tomorrow we give 150%. So tomorrow is, I had to take some time off, where I took about a week off, because the next 7 days are going to be interesting. We believe with how much it shrunk, we shouldn't have any issues, but he gets 150% dose tomorrow. And then we're doing another only 21-day cycle, and we're giving another 150% as a third round. And then that Our prayer and our belief is that that will wipe out and we'll hear no sign of disease. We'll go to San Diego and we'll do a shorter period, not 6 weeks, but a shorter period of radiation on some of the little spots that they've seen. And then we will just be closely monitored. But his his cancer is extremely aggressive, and it's kind of one of those things that we have one shot. We have one path, and when we get it, we have to get it.
Yeah.
um, which is hard, um, and we've been close to
I,
that.
I pray for his recovery, and anything is possible. Miracles are possible, right? And that's where we hold on to hope. And to have that, like, that, I don't know if you ever get those God winks, like, I'm supposed to walk through this door. I don't know why I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've gotten that a lot,
Yeah.
especially through this, and yeah, we've gotten it a lot.
How do you, and I know that I don't want to take up so much of your time today. You're heading into tomorrow, but just a couple of final questions that, how do you stay positive?
My wife, she's good.
Yeah.
She's
Do you
she's
have mantras? Do you have things that you say over and over in your head? Is it in the form of prayer? Is it talking to your wife? Anything that you can share that for people who are in, these challenging spaces, these places of unbelievable hardship?
I just think about my I had a cousin who went through pediatric cancer, and she beat it. Wasn't what we have, but there isn't a comparison that you could even put on it. It's a kid going through it. And when we first got diagnosed, my uncle, her dad called me. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he called me and he said, "You're gonna go through it. You're gonna go through hard times. Like, it's gonna be one of the hardest things you ever go through, but you will still laugh. You will still have great moments. You will still joke around. You'll still kid with your family." Um, because like when you're going through it, like it feels like the world has ended. Like it really does.
Yeah.
Um, but you can only cry so much. You can only be upset and scream at God so much until your body's just like done. And then in those little goofy moments, it's just being present. And he was right. Like we immediately started laughing. We worship, and we do a lot of worship music. I we have a song playlist for Griffin as well. That's not necessarily worship, but it's not like the music of today. It's just kind of like um, very Imagine Dragons style, just kind of like uplifting and positive. And he dances to it, and it's the cutest thing ever. So yeah, we do a lot of that. It's just kind of like dream building,
Yeah.
dreaming of the future, talking about our future, speaking that into existence, speaking that we are going to have a future, and just knowing that like everyone goes through hard times. This is just our hard time, and that if we can get through this, we can help someone else. And community, like when we were in Sutter, we had two other families that with three families, but two of them we got really close with, Tanya and her little kid Kodiak, and Alea and her mom Anna, and her dad Alex. But we just got really close with them. I mean, I think I sent you a photo, but Griffin went, like when we were in the hospital for Valentine's Day, and he went on a Valentine's Day little date with Alea, who's 2, right? And she's the cutest little girl. We call her a super toddler because like she walks around at like 2 being like, "Dad, can you put my shoes on?" And it's just we're like, so like having those families also going through hard times. And it's just it's not easier, but we can make their day better, and they can make our day better.
I
And
that. I get that. I remember in my own story, like 6 months after Jenna passed away, I remember that like duality of pain and joy. And that was like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, well, how is this possible that you could be in this space of pain, emotional pain, but you could also be in a space of emotional joy at the same time? I was like, oh, well, that's so profound. Like you can honor and be in both places and honor them, and it's okay to have those in,
yeah,
and have them reside in you at the same time, which is very powerful, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that's what I hear you saying.
yeah. It's also just like if my wife's having a hard day, um, I have to be on. Like I have to be having a good day. And it's just because like we're a team. And Griffin he picks up. He picks up on it. So it's not always easy, but we have to for him.
Yeah, something greater than ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Which is it's a powerful thing to walk away from, is that when we can put our life in the presence of something greater than ourselves, that's a powerful state changer for resiliency.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I will share the link to your fundraiser that Her Smile has set up on behalf of your family. We've already started creating some momentum, but my goal is to really, spread the word. And if I could get 30,000 people to give just $1, then we're well on our way to helping support you. So you could put all of your emotional bandwidth into caring for Griffin and not having to worry about the burden of finances. So that's our goal. And that's not our only goal, but maybe the bigger part of this is to get all of our prayer warriors in a line to help pray for Griffin's recovery.
I appreciate it so much. I really do. And I'll just say it's September. Never ever knew this before this year that September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness. It does not get even a level of funding at all. So if not us, just somewhere else, because we just need prayer. And there's tons of organizations like Her Smile that have been incredible. There's other ones too. I won't plug them, but just have been.
We're in it together. We're all part of a group. No competition.
But just find something, because like Griffin is incredible and we're making it through, but there are incredible families here too that are going through even harder things. So I really appreciate you.
Even harder. I mean, listen to this man who has a son with fighting brain cancer, and you can put yourself into a place to look at somebody else and being in an even greater space. That's very special. Well, thank you, Zach. We will be in touch. We'll be keeping everybody informed of your journey and Griffin's journey. And we pray for a full recovery.
Yeah, thank you.